And thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. It's another Wednesday morning, and welcome you to the program. We, of course, encourage you, as always, to be a part of the conversations this morning by, of course, joining us via social media platforms at News Central TV. Share your thoughts with us on any of the conversations that we're having. You could also join us via YouTube if you're watching us online for our viewers outside Nigeria. And do well to also leave a comment on the YouTube page. It is Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and so today, the 15th of January every year, Nigeria celebrates with, armed forces, and those who have paid the ultimate price, and those, of course, who are still fighting the very, very bitter war to protect Nigeria and to keep our country safe. There's a ton of questions that I believe must be asked today from the Nigerian government, its military head, and every other stakeholder that is in charge of ensuring that the Nigerian military is at its best shape always to protect Nigeria's integrity from external forces and also internal forces. To also you have an opportunity to basically speak the voice or speak with a voice for the soldiers who are out there fighting this war, the welfare of soldiers, the ability of these soldiers to actually fight the war, to the best of their abilities, and many other questions that must be asked. But like I raised a couple of maybe weeks ago, the questions as to why this war has lasted this long. If you did watch the interview with the Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Christopher Musa, where he spoke extensively on many questions that he was asked, but one of the things that he pointed out was the possibility of this war being funded or being supported by external forces that have still not been named. And so, today's Armed Forces Remembrance Day is another opportunity, to remind the Nigerian government that it must win this war, and not just win the war, but win the war as quickly as possible. And whatever necessary steps must be taken to aid the Nigerian army and to aid all Nigerian security forces in fighting this very, very bitter, gruesome war that has gone on for far too long, the Nigerian government must provide. If we need to increase our budget for defense, then we must increase that budget. If we need to, consult with, neighboring countries, whatever, and it's not discrediting the work that they have done. I always like to mention that, I acknowledge the sacrifice and the work and the courage and the braveness, of the Nigerian army and those who are currently in the battlefield. But at the same time, we must start to ask the questions as to why it has lasted this long and what it will take to end it as quickly as possible. Do we need more equipment? Do we need better, funding? Do we need better training? Do we need to recruit more soldiers into the Nigerian army? Do we need, of course, the non-kinetic means, which, of course, include closing our borders? And it's always shocking that year after year after year, we still do not have an actual conversation as Nigerians and from the Nigerian government as to what must be done to close up Nigeria's borders and to reduce the porosity of Nigeria's borders. The former Nigerian, President Muhammadu Buhari, I remember, mentioned that we're currently in God's hands if you look at the porous borders that we have. And so do we need to start to have that conversation? Is it important at this point? Do we need to build a wall like, Donald Trump, attempted to do in the United States? But whatever it would take, how do we close Nigeria's borders and reduce the inflow of these terrorists into Nigeria's territory? Not just the terrorists themselves, but also arms and ammunition. How do we raise questions on how these people have continued to receive support, with arms and with ammunition and with funding over these years? Just yesterday, there was another report of an attack that, led to the loss of about 40 lives in northern Nigeria once again. A couple of weeks ago, we heard about the forward operating base, I believe in Borno State, that was attacked, where about 6 soldiers reportedly lost their lives. And so again, it is extremely important that we ask the right questions and we put pressure on the Nigerian government to do whatever it must do to ensure that it ends this war and, brings our soldiers, back home, to the barracks. But let's start today with sharing with you what our top stories are and then also get into breakfast headlines. This morning, budget queries 2025 budget proposal. And also the CBN fines 9 banks 150 million naira each over ATM cash scarcity. Also celebrating Armed Forces Remembrance Day 2025. Papalada Community expresses shock over ritual murder. I beg your pardon. We, of course, did a report on that one. And the newspaper front pages will be bringing you the top stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning. We begin breakfast headlines with politics. Now, in the wake of the impeachment of the former Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Mudashiru Obasa, the newly elected Speaker, Mojisola Meranda, has held a meeting with the Governor's Advisory Council, party leaders, and relevant stakeholders. The Speaker, after the closed-door meeting, addressed members of the press, saying the aim of the meeting was to deliberate on the impeachment, which happened at the House of Assembly on Monday, and seek their blessings to carry on as the new Speaker.
We have come here this afternoon to meet our leaders, the leaders of the party, to brief them about what happened at the House of Assembly yesterday, to seek their blessing, and which we have gotten.
The Rivers High Court has nullified the congresses conducted by the People's Democratic Party in the state in 2024. The court also restrained the State Executive Committee of the PDP from overseeing the affairs of the party and barred Aaron Chukwuemeka from parodying himself as the chairman. Stephen Jumbo, the presiding judge, gave the order while ruling on the interlocutory injunction filed by Edwin Woko and Love Otoye, and of course two other PDP members. The suit was instituted against Chukwuemeka and 9 others. The petitioners asked the court to declare the local government and ward congresses of the party held in 2024 as null and void. And also security matters. Eyewitnesses in Kankidawa, Gidangoga community located in the Maradun local government area of Zamfara State say over 16 persons lost their lives following an airstrike by the Nigerian Air Force, with many still missing. They also said that about 9 confirmed to be injured have been discharged from the hospital, with 1 still in critical condition. Meanwhile, the state government has gifted a sum of 500,000 naira to each of the victims injured during the recent Air Force bombing at Zurmi and Maradun local government areas of the state. Governor Dauda Lawal made this known while paying a condolence visit to the affected victims of the strikes. Meanwhile, the Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Christopher Musa, has alleged that terrorist groups operating in Nigeria are receiving foreign funding to sustain their destabilization agenda. Musa said some surrendered terrorists, as well as those apprehended by troops, were found in possession of foreign currency. He emphasized the need for a more proactive and strategic approach to addressing security challenges across the country. Meanwhile, the High Command of the Nigerian military has honored outstanding officers who have made exceptional contributions to the successes achieved so far, particularly in the ongoing fight against terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and other emerging security threats. Still in the news, residents of Papalada, a satellite community in Nasarawa State, saying they remain shocked over the murder of Salome Adaidu by youth in the community. They say the alleged murder for alleged ritual purposes, which has taken the headlines in the last 2 days, has cast fear on the community, as many youths have fled for their lives. Salome was allegedly murdered by a youth in the community known as Timi Ajayi, who was apprehended with her decapitated head as he tried to deliver it to unknown accomplices. Earlier, News Central's Amadine Uyi spoke on his visit to the community. I will share that report with you as we go on with the program this morning. The Nigerian police have threatened to sue Amnesty International if a report on the End Bad Governance protest is not retracted within 7 days. In November 2024, Amnesty published a report titled Bloody August, Nigerian Government's Violent Crackdown on End Bad Governance Protest. In the report, the organization said at least 24 protesters were killed with 1,200 others arrested during the marches. But the police said in December 2024 that it had set up a special panel to investigate the claims. The police had said the panel found the report to be false and requested the organization to retract it and issue an apology. Also in the news, and outside Nigeria, South Africa's Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and Mineral Resources and Energy Minister Gwede Mantashe have visited Steelfontein Mine in the northwest, where a large-scale rescue operation for illegal miners trapped underground is underway. The visit coincides with the third and final phase of a large-scale operation to dismantle the illicit mining network. On Monday, rescuers deployed a cage to retrieve the first group of miners, marking a significant step in the recovery process. So far, 56 miners have been extracted alive, while 15 deceased miners have been retrieved since day one.
What are they saying? They give you different figures. They give you different estimates. Now, when will we know how many people will still remain underground as opposed to those who will be out? We will be working. What we can say is that we have agreed, all of us here, that this operation is underway for 10 days from yesterday. Then after 10 days, we'll stop to assess. Now, any indicator or indication that it still has to go on, or there are still people who are underground, or whatever, we will take on board until we are more than reasonably satisfied that we've done everything reasonable to get everybody out.
And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Let's now move back to Breakfast Central and get into our top stories. I am Osaugie Ogbola.
Residents of Papalada Community, located at the boundary between Nasarawa State and the Federal Capital Territory, have expressed shock over the alleged case of ritual murder perpetrated by a resident in the community. The case involving the murder of Salome Adaidu, a 24-year-old resident of Nyanya in Abuja, has sparked diverse reactions, as her family have also called for justice. Amadine Uyi brings us more in this report.
24-year-old Salome Adaidu, a 7-youth corper with the National Youth Service Corps in Abuja, was hoping to finish her 1-year mandatory service in March. However, on Sunday, January the 15th, a severed head of Salome was found with TikToker Timi Ajayi. Her sister says the news of her death is still hard to believe.
Someone called me on the road that my sister is in Uke. We're not like, okay, what is she doing there? Please, is there any information? Sir, please, can you give me any information about my sister? The man was like, no, he cannot give me any information about my sister. I have to come to the general hospital in Uke to come and meet my sister. I said, okay, I'm coming. When I got to Uke, I saw my sister dismembered on the floor. My sister, they told us to come and identify the body. We came, we saw my sister lying down on the floor, her hand, her legs, everything separated from her body. Then we now asked what happened. Then I said a guy, her boyfriend, picked her up. Her boyfriend killed her in his house and was taking her head, only the head, to Nasarawa State.
News Central tried to locate the residence of the suspected ritual murderer to hear firsthand what happened and to get to speak to those who had met him one-on-one before the incident. Some say the episode remains a shock.
We got to see that there are some parts of human being in a sack, backo bag, 7 backo bag. The bones different, the flesh different, the head different. They cut it like 2 places here, divided it everywhere. So that was all right. We saw on Sunday here in Papalada. And right now, many people are scared.
I never see a man with this guy. It's girl, different girls every day. Sometimes when we sit down, I used to say they ask some bar people, say me them find girl for them. I hear them with my ear when we dey for bar. So you normally deal with girls. This is what I know. You normally deal with girls. I never see them with a man for my lifestyle.
In the whole Papalada, the morale of people is down. People are mourning. People are mourning in this community because it's just like even more than a dream. It's what people could not believe.
The family of Salome, however, expressed displeasure at the way and manner the police have handled the case.
We are not satisfied with what the Nigerian police are doing just yet. I am not satisfied. I don't think anybody here is satisfied. They've not asked the family to write statements. They've not told the family anything about the guy, what he does, where he picked her from. I think these are basic questions that need to be asked.
All we just know is that we need to know information about my sister and we need justice.
While the Nasarawa State Police Command are yet to speak on the matter, the family of Salome are calling for justice for their daughter. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
This is one of the most heartbreaking stories that we've had to look at or follow on social media and even follow here on News Central TV. It's a really sad situation. And I don't know what's even more heartbreaking, Osauge, the fact that this woman's life was cut short not just because of natural circumstances, but cut short in the most gruesome way. Two, the fact that the suspect, I mean, we call him suspect, but the person who killed her at this point, he sounds like he has no remorse. I don't know if you've seen clips of him online being interviewed. Sounds like there's no remorse. And I think the third thing that really breaks my heart is her family and the way that the family have been treated. When Nigerian citizens have to be, unfortunately, at the other end of crime, you know, here, I mean, if I go back to the time when those boys were kidnapped, the boys who were trafficked to Ghana, where we had investigative journalist Marshal Ononye work with the Ghana State Police to conduct a bust and bring them back to Nigeria. The one thing that the parents said, we had a conversation with them, their mothers talked about how very uncooperative the police was to them, how they, you know, asked them to bring money, how the mothers were crying. I think there's a lack of empathy and compassion. How is somebody's family member killed, dismembered, and then they go to the police, and police is telling them, we don't have any update for you, we don't have any report for you. It's almost like you have to be begging for information. The very least you can do when situations like this occur is to help the family find closure. I had watched interviews with this same family members, you know, where Amadine had asked them, do you have any updates? What are they telling you about your sister? And then they had said they had no idea. They didn't even know whether the suspect was in detention. They didn't know whether he was being held. That when they kept asking, they were saying, all they kept hearing was, we have no update for you, we have no update for you. I think that empathy is a course that needs to be learned or needs to be taught, you know, to our Nigerian police. And then the fact how to respond to situations like this. If you don't have the answer, the way that in the medical profession, they have people that will come and conduct the triage where they're doing the blood pressure and everything. I think there should be a group of people who should be able to handle families where crises like this occur.
So I don't know if that is, you know, is something to truly expect from the Nigerian police as it is currently structured and as it currently is. When, you know, people talk about, you know, police reform, it's not just taking SARS off the road. Yes. It's not just, you know, stopping them from mounting roadblocks. The idea of police reform is a generic, picture that a lot of people point out, and it includes some of the things that you pointed out. But the Nigerian state, as it is currently structured, as it currently is, cannot promise you that. Because I've said it, you know, countless times, that the dysfunction that happens in many other aspects of Nigeria cannot exclude the police. You will not just reform police. You know, the Nigerian state, the Nigerian police is a representation of where Nigeria is as a country. It's the same thing with the fire service, same thing with healthcare, same thing with education, same thing with humanitarian, IDP camps. Listen to the conversation we had yesterday. So it is a representation of where Nigeria is as a country. It's respect for human rights, respect for human beings, respect for the Nigerian citizen. the amount of investment that it has put in these different sectors. That is a proper representation of it. But aside that, I feel like on this particular conversation, it must be the deepest level of trauma for a family to have, the images of their daughter or their sibling like that. They would never recover from that. But at the same time, I feel like we need to have a conversation as Nigerians. I said, what exactly is ritual killings? Because we see these very, very, dastardly murders every now and then. And we just say it's ritual killings. So the person's breast was removed, the person's eye was cut out. What exactly is ritual killings?
In this case, he obviously hasn't acted alone.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's a conversation we need to have, because the next time that we see an unfortunate situation like this, where a body has been dismembered somehow, some way. If you remember the Oster case, there was pretty much, they just say, ritual killing. What exactly is that? And, have we done an actual investigation as to if there is something beyond, just calling it ritual killings? And do people actually even do ritual killings in Nigeria?
People who believe in these things, right?
I mean, it might exist, but we don't. I also don't think that Nigeria is in that space where we can actually even assess the mental state of the average Nigerian. For those who are even serial killers, for those who are completely mentally unstable, for those who are Jeffrey Dahmers walking around in Nigeria, we do not know that there are no people who are like that they do not have the because you spoke about the young man now and say there's no remorse.
So that can also be a game plan. From a number of people have said that it might also be that he's putting up that act so that it will.
But the point I'm making is that we do not know, and the Nigerian state has not gotten itself to that level where it can have conversations on that level. That's the point that I'm making. And, simply just calling it ritual killings and that's it. It's not enough.
It is not enough. I mean, our heart goes out to the family of this woman, and just to say to everyone who's mourning her loss, that we find comfort, because I do feel like it's a collective loss. The fact that we've all had to see the gruesome pictures of how she was murdered. And to Nigerians, to young people, there's really no shortcut to wealth. But then, everybody needs to understand the value of hard work, but then again, that would be another conversation for another day. Let's move on to our next story. A few days ago, BudgIT, an organization known for simplifying budgets, promoting transparency, and fostering active citizen engagement for institutional reforms and equitable society, raised an alarm over the inconsistencies in the 2025 federal government proposed budget. BudgIT published irregularities identified in the proposed budget, where the non-inclusion of the budget breakdown of some MDAs, commissions and councils, including the absence of the budgets of over 60 government-owned enterprises. This also includes the Nigerian Ports Authority, NPA, Nigerian Customs Services, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, among others, which he said were conspicuously absent from the 2025 budget.
Also included in the non-budgetary provision is the funding for the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road. BudgIT says the National Assembly should, as a matter of scrutiny, address irregularities contained in the 2025 proposed national budget to ensure that the approved budget would meet national interest and implementation. The organization criticized the allocation of 2.49 trillion naira to 5 regional development commissions under personnel costs, arguing that this classification obscures operational expenses and undermines accountability. Now, joining us to speak on this is the Head Research and Policy Advisory BudgIT, Ini Usen. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning to you in the studio. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. I actually waited, for a while for, the budget analysis of the 2025 budget. After 1 week, I didn't see that. I was heartbroken. But it eventually came, and I said, okay, finally, BudgIT has provided food for me to eat. There's a lot of damning, aspects of, your analysis. I'm not even sure which of them is the most, troubling. But for you, when, BudgIT was putting that together, which of them stood out for you as the one that should, disturb Nigerians the most in that analysis of the 2025 budget?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, if you have worked long enough in this space, it's easy for you to get depressed and fatigued over these issues, because these are issues that we've been battling with, that we've been, bringing to the fore for the last couple of years. So sometimes you feel that you are beginning to sound like a broken record, because the evidence that you have provided in the past has not led to citizens' action, has not led to reforms, much needed reforms, that would help us in moving forward. If you remember the Senator Ningi saga in 2023, where it was alleged that sums to the tune of 3-something trillion were padded, were included in the budget, or the budget was padded to the tune of 3.2 trillion naira. As some other persons interpreted it as having two different budgets. But the truth is, if you look critically at the driving cause of that anomaly that occurred last year, which has happened almost every year in our recent history, is the fact that the federal government often classifies their budget into three broad categories. So you would often see the allocations to statutory agencies, commissions, and then the arms of government, like the National Assembly and the judiciary through the National Judicial Council. And you also have allocations to the ministries, departments, and agencies of government. That's the second layer. The third layer is now the allocations to the government-owned enterprises or public corporations, as the case may be. So these are entities that were set up to generate revenue on behalf of government. And so they generate the bulk of revenues that government utilizes in implementing the budget. Now, historically and up until now, what we see is that for the budgets of the ministries, departments, and agencies of government, we usually see a detailed breakdown of those budgets, from personnel to overhead to capital expenditure that those ministries, departments, and agencies intend to incur in a particular year. When you get to the statutory transfers, we usually see the breakdown of some entities that receive statutory transfers, and for some others, we see like a skeletal breakdown, and then for some, we do not see a breakdown at all. So if you look at INEC, for instance, the Public Complaints Commission, for instance, that receives statutory transfers, we usually see the breakdown of, the detailed breakdown of their budgets. When you move to the National Assembly, we see a skeletal breakdown, summaries of, across certain expenditure heads. But when you get to the National Judicial Council or the judiciary, it's a single aggregate line you see, no detailed breakdown. When you get to agencies like TED Fund, it's a single budget line you see, no breakdown. When you now come to the GOEs, which are over 60 of them, including the Nigerian Ports Authority, NIMASA, NTA, Nigeria Postal Service, all of those agencies that were set up to run as a business and generate income for the country, the budgets, the detailed budgets of those agencies are usually conspicuously missing from the budget. And this was at the heart of the allegation that Senator Ningi made last year, because by the time you add up the details, you would see that the difference between the details added up and then the summary sum is that aggregate sum of the budget to the GOEs. But because some actors who play in this space do not understand that anomaly, it's very easy for you to classify that as items missing in the budget. And so we have been at the forefront of the advocacy towards having the federal government.
So hold on, just to confirm what you're saying. You're saying that those, GOCs, like you mentioned now, that don't have budget figures in the budget, it's intentional.
Well, I do not know if it's intentional, but it's definitely against the principles of budgeting. When you are submitting a budget, it has to be comprehensive, meaning that all of the revenues that you hope to earn, all of the expenditures that you hope to incur should be presented in that budget with a sufficient amount of detail that allows all the different stakeholders understand how exactly you want to allocate resources. I need to remind you that the budget process is a political process, right? That denotes the allocation of resources to satisfy interests across board. So if I'm a Nigerian that pays my taxes, that is meant to be levied on certain services, that is supposed to pay back the loans that government incurs to be able to deliver public services, I should know exactly how these resources are utilized and deployed across board. It is my right. You cannot shave my hair in my absence. So if you are looking at it through the lens of the principles of budgeting, it behoves on government that the details, sufficient amount of details, of the allocations to these agencies, ministries, departments, government-owned enterprises, commissions, as the case may be, should be well detailed in the budget. What used to happen in the past, and I do not have information on what is happening currently, is that when the president, presents the budget of the MDAs and the aggregate sums of the GOEs, and then it's passed into law and implementation commences, it's after that process that you now have a separate process happening between those GOEs and the National Assembly outside the purview of the executive. So the executive would have started implementing the budget 3-4 months into the year. The government-owned enterprises are still debating their own budgets with the National Assembly, and of course, people are cutting deals. And mind you, the revenues from these GOEs are what the government is expecting to implement the budget. And so if you do not have as a central government the full view of what exactly these GOEs are generating and spending, how at the end of the day would your budget be credible? That's why year in, year out, you have shortfalls in these projections, because the process is not closely knit. It would seem as if different government agencies are running in silo, and there's no central clearinghouse for putting all of this in order. Now, like I said before, I do not know if that is the process as currently practiced. But across the different other issues that we have raised with regards to, the allocations to certain commissions, 3 commissions were established last year, I think. The Southwest Development Commission, the Northwest Development Commission, and Southeast Development Commission. And if you look at the supposed breakdown of the budgets of those 3 commissions, it's just a bulk sum under personnel to those entities. There is no way that an entity that was just set up a couple of months ago would be incurring a personnel cost of 400 billion, 300 billion. So how do accountability actors like budget, like the media, how do we monitor the utilization of these funds? Yeah. How does the Office of the Auditor General audit the utilization of these funds if there are no clear details as to how exactly these entities intend to spend these humongous sums? If I come lastly to the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road, we have been on this for almost the past 2 years. I remember I was involved with looking at the budget for 2022 to 2024. What we were only able to find were maybe allocations of maybe 100 million in 2 or 3 places that showed any sense of, any allocation to the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road in the 2024 budget. But the substantial sum, because mind you, the financing arrangement that the government deployed for this project sort of ensures that government has a counterpart funding. As it is today, we do not know the exact cost of that project. We do not know what government's counterpart fund in that project is. We do not know how much it has spent so far in that project. We do not know what is left to be spent. We do not know what the recoupment arrangement is for the investor. Would the roads be towed? For how long would they be towed? All of these details are what is missing with regards to that project. And we think that for a project of that magnitude, and then the impact that it seeks to have on the country and its economy, that these details are provided to the public.
All right, and I do think that it's very important, especially because we look at the coastal highway was a project that has caused and still causes a lot of debate, in some corners a lot of discomfort to individuals and businesses, and yes, a lot of clarity is needed in that regard. I'd like you to speak about the insertion of 447 insertions in the budget that has then amounted to a staggering 2.24 trillion. I mean, in your article, you detailed there that in 2021 budget observed that 5,601 capital projects were added to the appropriation bill during the review process. In 2022, it increased to 6,462, and by 2024, 7,447 insertions. What do these insertions look like?
So the Constitution, sort of gives the National Assembly the powers to appropriate funds, but it doesn't define the extent to those powers. In some jurisdictions like the US, the powers are unrestricted. The National Assembly or Congress can completely rewrite the budget. In some other jurisdictions, there's partial restriction, and in some other jurisdictions, there's no restriction at all. But in the Nigerian case, there's no clear definition as to the extent of those powers. And the National Assembly in very recent history has relied on that lacuna, because I call it a lacuna, to now, sort of arbitrarily appropriate funds in the budget. So when the executive submits the budget for review, and assent and passage as the case may be, we noticed that between 2021 and 2024, there were incessant insertions in the budget. If you recall, when the president was going to sign the 2023 budget into law, he made a statement. He said, this budget is unimplementable because the National Assembly have inserted over 6,400 projects in the budget. And the nature of these projects is such that, one, there are certain projects that ideally shouldn't be the obligation or the responsibility of the federal government. Why should the federal government be sinking a ball in my community or my village? What is the role of the local government? What is the role of the state government? What is the role of the development commissions that they have set up to deliver development at that local level? Why should they be building primary health care centers? Why should they be building community town halls? That's one way the problem manifests. Is also that when these insertions are done, they are done in agencies that neither have the capacity nor the mandate to implement these projects. So a Cocoa Research Institute that is supposed to be bordered or saddled with the responsibility of carrying out cutting-edge research to provide improved seedlings to aid the production of cocoa to increase our yield per hectare, would have allocations to build schools, build primary health care centers, construct roads in locations that are far from where they are situated. You have a lot of other educational institutions that are involved in things that the Ministry of Agri should be doing, the Ministry of Works should be doing, the Ministry of Water Resources should be doing. And this leads to a misallocation of resources, because in a lot of instances, the federal government cannot account for the utilization of these funds. And so we were trying to preempt the National Assembly in saying that in this 2025 fiscal year, considering the fact that we are dealing with a myriad of challenges in gargantuan proportions, that the National Assembly focuses on what the core mandate of the federal government should be. The core mandate of the agencies should be, they should move away from that era where people have turned the federal government budget to an avenue for instituting.
And this has been going on. This has been going on for a long time. You know what you're talking about now, which is these insertions into the budget. Where like you've mentioned, Cocoa Research is building a bridge or drilling borehole, something very abnormal like that. That has been going on for a long time. Am I correct with this?
Yes, it has been, and I think a previous administration tried to resolve this by creating a 100 billion naira envelope for zonal intervention projects or constituency projects. So in a very short time, there was a little sanity around that process. But in recent history,
apologies, Inilsen. I just want to. So what are your suspicions with these insertions? What do you think happens with them?
I mean, if you put a project in an agency that neither has the mandate nor the capacity to implement, and you have an audit regime that is almost obsolete, the most recent audit report that we have in the public domain is for the 2021 fiscal year, and this is 2025. So meaning that for all the expenditure that was carried out in 2022, 2023, 2024, we have no clue as to the efficiency or the effectiveness, in those implementations. Who accounts for those resources that have been spent? Is it when somebody has retired and has moved abroad, or somebody is dead? Who should have accounted for the utilization of those resources is no more, that we now start looking at those issues. There is evidence that, that we have not allocated or spent those resources efficiently. And these resources could have been utilized more efficiently in other areas that would have more impact in the lives of the average Nigerian.
Yeah, is it possible that these insertions, that are, placed in, MDAs that have no business, with them, handling those responsibilities, is it possible that those, insertions eventually find their way back to those who inserted them, back to the National Assembly? Is that a theory that would, make sense?
I mean, I don't want to make any allegations, but I've seen, internal communications between an MDA and a legislator, right? Where the MDA is even lobbying for this project. So they would say, tell the legislator, oh, we have shown capacity to deliver constituency projects. So when you are nominating your constituency projects, please consider us for an agency where you would insert this.
Ines, and we'll have to interject at this point because we need to connect to the president who's speaking in Abu Dhabi at the moment. But thank you so much for joining us. I hope that we can revisit the conversation soon so we can constantly hold them to account. And well done to BudgIT on the work you're doing. Thank you. All right, we'll now have to head to Abu Dhabi where we're connecting with the president who's speaking live right now at the ASD Summit. And let's bring you live updates.
African with global energy future. This topic resonates deeply with Africa's aspirations and challenges. It also underscores a pivotal reality about our dear continent. The fight against climate change is not merely an environmental necessity, but a global economic opportunity to reshape the trajectory of our continent and the global energy landscape. As leaders, stakeholders, and citizens of our planet, we stand at a crucial and critical junction in human history. To succeed, we must innovate, collaborate, and decisively collaborate as a global community. As Africa's most populous nation and one of its largest economies, Nigeria recognizes its responsibility to demonstrate the required leadership on these matters. We have embraced a vision of sustainability that aligns with global aspiration while addressing the local realities. Our efforts are anchored on three pillars: energy transition, climate resilience, and sustainable development. My administration, we recognize this problem from the word get-go, from inception. We recognize the importance of reducing carbon emission and a just transition to clean and renewable energy, promoting environmental sustainability and economic growth. Energy transition, their delegates and all the excellencies. Our energy transition plan, like many nations, are aimed at diversifying energy sources and reducing our dependency on fossil fuel. Prioritizing the transition to cleaner energy sources as a cornerstone of our national development strategy. Nigeria is committed to achieving a net zero emission by 2060, in line with global climate objectives. We are developing the infrastructure to utilize compressed natural gas and electric vehicles. Nigeria also is investing substantially in energy generation through exploration of efficient and internationally satisfied data required to export our solid mineral and critical metal in support of the green energy transition. Climate resiliency must be achieved. Building resiliency against the adverse effects of climate change is essential for safeguarding our African communities and economies. Nigeria is implementing climate-smart agricultural practices to enhance food security while reducing environmental impacts. The government has approved several developmental policies such as National Clean Cooking Gas Policy, which is aimed at promoting clean energy, environment, and health benefit and socio-economic development in our region. We believe the sustainable development must be inclusive. We are therefore working tirelessly to ensure that our policies promote equity and social justice, leaving no one behind. Challenges versus opportunities in Nigeria, yes, there are, and there will continue to be challenges. But how do you mitigate that? We face serious challenges, environmental challenges including deforestation, desertification, coastal erosion, flooding, pollution, and many other negative impacts of climate change. Lake Chad continues to shrink every year. Livelihood of people continue to be threatened. Our government is working with local communities to implement solutions to mitigate these effects and help us build resilience in the face of environmental challenges. For resources, to promote a green economy in Africa, we must focus on integrating sustainable practices in all sectors of our economy. These investments are capital intensive in nature, and it required international support from partner countries, including multinational organizations. Developmental partners and individuals who shared our vision of a sustainable, prosperous, and equitable future must be included. Nigeria became the first country in Africa to initiate funding for green projects through sovereign green bond proceeds. the third issuance of which is currently in progress. We urge investors to partner with us in this regard. Our government remains committed to providing an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Harnessing technology and innovation is key to driving sustainable development. We agree. Nigeria is increasingly embracing new technologies like clean energy, water conservation, land and forest restoration, waste management, and circular economy. We will partner with global leaders in harnessing the power of technology. We are finding new and innovative ways to address our environmental challenges. We have arable agricultural lands for advanced technological farming, including a brighter future for artificial intelligence. Global collaborations are challenges that we must overcome. And global solution will only be effective if we work together in the spirit of mutual respect and a shared future. Nigerian government believes that sustainable development is not just a national issue, but a global imperative. We must continue to strengthen international cooperation at regional and global levels to achieve the sustainable developmental goals and mitigate the effects of climate change. Dear esteemed delegates, I would like to stress here, in addition to everything you've heard in the last few days, the most impactful image that I'm taking away from here with your support is the impact of those children that on the first day waved the banner of United Emirates Republic, asking us, all of us, to stand up, sustain the planet Earth for the future that we want to bequeath unto them. Thank you very much.
And there we have the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. And he, of course, was addressing leaders, world leaders, about the moves that Nigeria has been making and the plans that Nigeria has to be able to join the world in global conversations, net zero emissions by 2060. That's a lot of work that would involve the incorporation of the ESG, and all of us looking at the roles that we as individuals have to play, but even the nation on a global landscape, looking at the role that it has to play in ensuring that Nigerians are carried along and become a part of the global conversations. I saw how you were smiling. You were very proud and excited, whilst you were watching the speech.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an important conversation to be had, by Nigeria, but it's really the sincerity of what steps we're taking, and that for me is what I would always question, the sincerity. The president spoke about meeting, I'm not sure, I can't remember what target now, by 2060.
Yeah, net zero
emissions, exactly, by 2060. But, it's the same country that, has been struggling with Ogoni cleanup, for what, 10, 15, 20 years now. So again, yes, we can talk, a lot, and speeches are, powerful, but, the sincerity in it, is what many people would question. What steps have we really taken with regards, reducing gas flaring in the whole of the Niger Delta? What actual steps have we taken? But aside that, I always would remind everyone that, Nigeria would have to defeat a lot of, win a lot of battles first before it gets into these conversations seriously, before it starts to really now talk about, meeting sustainable development goals on
In fact, I don't, if we're being honest with ourselves,
we need to defeat hunger.
Let's even be honest with ourselves. I don't see how we're meeting the sustainable development goals at 2030. 2030 is just 5 years away from now, right? You're looking at zero hunger, zero poverty, you're looking at climate change, you're looking at the role of education, you're looking at gender equality goal 5. So if you go through these 17 sustainable development goals, we are a very long way from them. We're fighting the basic issues. Like, poverty, I won't call poverty basic, but it is an issue. We still have open defecation. We still have a country where there are no toilets. So clean water on the island, shout out to our lucky folks. You can talk about the struggle with access to potable water, and these are the privileged ones. How about the underprivileged people? So it's just a lot of factors that we have to factor into consideration. And I think also, even as individuals, as Nigerian citizens, I don't know if we yet completely have the consciousness of the role that we play in sustaining the environment, in little things, when we talk about the single-use plastic, ensuring that we get to a point where we're not all involved. I would always reference countries like Rwanda and Kenya and their role in banning the use of single-use plastic and how you would even pay. I think I saw one of the big malls in Ikeja, I believe it's ShopRite, that has said that you should bring your own bag, which is a step in the right direction.
Lagos is taking, those steps, but, generally, as a country, like I said, there's many battles that we need to win.
Because now we don't chop first. We do think of,
I totally
environmentally sustainable development.
I don't think there's any state in Nigeria that can boast and say that every household has pipe-borne, water flowing out of its taps, provided by the state government, by the state infrastructure, water infrastructure. I don't think there's any state in Nigeria at this point.
Anyway, so let's go on a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll bring you more conversations. This is still Breakfast Central, and we thank you for staying tuned.
More tourism. 3, diversify the economy by commercializing new products such as fruits, bananas, fish, dairy products, beef, sugar, cassava, leather, wood products, etc. 4, add value to some of the raw materials such as textiles, dairy products, sugar, so that you produce finished products. 5, enter the knowledge economy by producing products of the intellect such as automobiles, vaccines, etc. However, to go into the 5 phases, apart from peace, you need infrastructure and a skilled and healthy population. We have therefore invested in electricity generation, roads constructions, building schools and health centers. These modest efforts have seen the economy grow from a miserable $4 billion in 1986 to now 55 billion by the foreign exchange rate method, or $168.5 billion by the PPP method. We are not satisfied with this. Much of this $55 billion is raw materials. By merely adding value to a spectrum of these raw materials, such as coffee, cereals, minerals, etc., we intend to grow the economy to $500 billion in the coming few years. We therefore invite investors from the world to come and help us to do this rapid transformation of our economy and society, as they also benefit because the internal rate of return in Uganda is 14.1%. This is when we still have high transport costs and also some high cost of electricity. Once we build the railway, a modern railway to the ocean, the internal rate of return will be much higher than this. You can compare this internal rate of return with what you get in other areas. Uganda now is classified as a lower middle income country. It will, however, rapidly grow into a high middle income country and eventually into a first world country. To achieve these goals, as already stated, we need to add value to the large spectrum of our agricultural raw materials: coffee, bananas, fruits, cotton, oilseeds, cassava, maize, tea, dairy, beef, poultry products, fish, forest products, sugar, etc., and mineral raw materials such as gold, iron ore, phosphates, lithium, uranium, petroleum, gas, etc. The efforts of value addition to raw materials are part of sector 2 of the economy. This is manufacturing. The other sectors are commercial agriculture that will generate some of the required raw materials, services such as tourism, hospitality, transport, professional services, etc., and ICT. I salute our African brothers and sisters in East Africa and in the whole continent. With clear vision, we agreed that when you produce a good or a service, you need to sell that good. The more you sell, the better for our prosperity. The internal market of Uganda, of 46 million people, is not enough to support large-scale sustained production of goods and services, especially when their purchasing power is still low. Already Uganda has got surplus of many products: maize, milk, beef, bananas, steel products, cement, tubes and tires, textiles, cassava products, etc., etc. How would the Ugandan economy grow if we did not have the East African market? If we did not have the COMESA market? COMESA is the common market of Central and East Southern Africa, and the wider African market under the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area. I would like, therefore, to assure investors from outside that the Africans have already laid down a lucrative market for investment by having a common market, the CFTA of the whole of Africa. When you invest in Uganda or any brother African countries, you have the assurance of this huge and growing market. The population of Africa will be 2.5 billion in the next 25 years. The population of Uganda will be 106 million in the next 25 years. What many people in the world do not know is that Africa, the origin of man, because all of you are former Africans if you don't know it, has been underpopulated for much of the 4.5 million years of human history, ever since the evolution of the Homo sapiens sapiens. This was because Africa is good for man, but has also been good for man's enemies, such as the mosquitoes, the tsetse flies, the microbes, etc. Until recently, when modern science has enabled us to suppress these enemies of man. Africa is 12 times the size of India. You can put India 12 times into Africa and it will fit there, in land area, and with a lot of natural resources. However, India has been having a bigger population than Africa until recently. It's now that we have overtaken India and China for the first time in population size. The growth of Africa is now unstoppable. Future leadership in prosperity belongs to Africa without a doubt, as long as we are acting right. As a third generation anti-colonial freedom fighter from Africa attending this gathering, I cannot end my remarks without commenting.
And that, of course, is the President of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni, at the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, addressing global leaders about the role that Uganda plays in meeting up with the sustainability development goals, the global vision for sustainability in the world. And now we review the newspaper front pages. We have our guest analyst here with us, Sheson Okwade. Good morning. Good to have you.
Yeah, good morning.
I was thinking you'd be at the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. I'm surprised. I mean, you're a global leader. What are you?
Yeah, I flew in this morning so that I can be part of this program. So after the program,
go back.
That's
Thank
the way
you
we
so much.
operate. You know, I must give respect to this program.
Thank you.
And as global person, you go, come back. Doesn't matter, you just make yourself available.
I totally understand. I was asking if you've recovered from losing your speaker on Monday.
Yes, I'm so sorry, Obasa. Yeah, your speaker was impeached.
Okay, legal speaker.
Your speaker?
Former speaker.
Yes, yes.
A former speaker. And see, politics is not, when you see a politician, they will tell you no permanent friend. No
permanent interest.
In fact, that day in the morning, a lot of the campaign, Trust Africa, Nigerian politician, your loyalty cease. Immediately they pull you out of the office. And it will interest you to see that the same set of honorables that wore black bow during the budget presentation to support him, every one of them together said enough of this. But the truth of it is that history has been made. We now have the first female speaker for the state after 7 consecutive. So I think give that.
What would it? I can't imagine what it would feel like, you know, to return to that, because he's still in, you know, a member of the House.
Of course.
So what would it feel like to return, you know, back in the midst of, you know, 20 exactly?
Leave all those things. Politicians don't know the motion. The fact remains that he's no longer speaker, but he's still a member of the House of State House of Assembly, and possibly they will give him one chairman. Haven't you see? Well, what you are talking about is his own is not developed.
What of governors that retire in the House? They've made the House their permanent retirement plan.
Yeah, even saying, maybe we have the likes of the big guys at the National Assembly, where they will leave as either the Senate president and come back to be on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, but not impeached. It's different when you are impeached, you know, and then you have to sit amongst the people who impeached you last week.
You are talking because you are not involved in politics.
Well,
those things that you are still in the game.
Politicians.
Those things. I don't want to use that language.
Politicians are ashamed. Let's go to the paper.
That's what they talk. They are not concerned.
So long as their pocket is being oiled. Let's see the front page of the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, Southwest governors team up against ISWAP elements bandits. Governors working on intelligence report as Southwest monarchs demand proactive step. Yuletide, CBN finds 9 banks 1.35 billion naira for ATM cash scarcity. You don't mean it. So they had money all the while. Nigeria earned 50 trillion naira from crude oil in 2024, according to report. Court hears suits challenging Lagos-Calabar highway contract. Ogun lovers wanted for allegedly killing Chinese. His ex-queen, others regain freedom after 21-day remand. Opposition demands impeached speaker's probe as GAC meets Lagos Assembly leaders. We took that earlier in the news, and we saw her saying that she had to meet with the Governor's Advisory Council to get their blessing. And, she has gotten their blessing to step in. And final story, FBN says our dispute with General Hydrocarbons is over transparency, and the beef goes on. Let's move on to the Vanguard.
Well, not very many major stories on the Vanguard, but the big one on your screen says underfunding, huge debt, the root cause of power sector failure. As supply falls below 4,000 megawatts, creates more hurdles for households and businesses. Top of the screen, CBN fines 9 banks for failing to dispense cash at ATMs. AI, decentralized electricity supply, Okonjo-Iweala says Nigeria can't be left behind. GAC meets and endorses new Lagos Speaker Miranda. We're going to talk about that definitely. Marketers shift to Dangote refinery as petrol depot price hits 950 naira per litre. And in sports, Pinnick missing 2026 World Cup would be disaster for Nigeria. Those are the stories on the Vanguard. Do we have time to squeeze in another one?
Yes. Let's take our next paper this morning. We have the Nigerian Tribune. On the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, National Assembly demands detailed report on Ministry of Livestock Development. Senators, reps frown on 11.8 billion naira budget for 2025. Minister told not to restrict projects to cattle alone. White paper on ministry still not out. CBN sanctions 9 banks for failing to dispense cash via ATMs. NERC transfers full electricity regulatory oversight to 4 states. PDP NWC to convene amidst controversy over national secretary position. Ude Okoye expected to attend. We have JAMB registrar debunks report on spending 850 million naira on fumigation. Wahala. Says amount spent on fumigation in 2024 less than 1 million naira. First Bank says no abuse of court process in dispute with General Hydrocarbons Limited. I think we can actually still take the last paper, the Daily Trust. And on the front page of the Daily Trust,
cash crunch. CBN fines 9 banks 1.35 billion naira. Warn Gaza, Israel to OK ceasefire deal. Ex-Sokoto Governor Bafarawa dumps PDP. Neglecting the ex-soldiers dangerous for fight against insecurity, says Irabo. Vulcanizer sets lover ablaze during arguments in Abuja. Boko Haram burns church houses in Borno. Also, we can't fight banditry with 20 armored personnel carriers, says Minister, and also student leaders to get rice as Tinubu extends palliative to SUGs. Those are the big stories on the Daily Trust. I think we should start with Lagos State, in continuation of where we already kicked off. The governorship, Governor's Advisory Council, I think it's one of the stories on the Vanguard this morning, meets with the Lagos Speaker Miranda. For those who are not sure exactly what the Governor's Advisory Council is and what it does, what its relevance is really, do you have a clear idea?
Yeah, well, from the little knowledge I know about them, they are like the people who call the leaders of the party that bring cohesion. They are there as the leader to make sure that things go the right perspective. If you have all these promises that we have offered to the citizen, how are we monitoring and following them to letters so that the people can benefit? If there are disputes, amongst the tiers of government, the executive, the legislators, and the judiciary, they come in and see how they can politically solve the problem without getting to the level at which the people will now suffer. That's what I understand for their role. They are the leaders of the party in the states that the governor, the speaker, the head of judiciary listen to when critical in advisory capacity does not mean that they control. They can see certain things and say, we feel this is the way to go based. A lot of them are experienced politicians and they feel that they can give the right perspective to anyone that will actually be there. You don't need to, I'm sure our governor was really not a politician. This guy has been there for long ages, and you see people coming in as governor, they say they are young. And you just say that people who have the experience will be able to tailor certain things to them. I think that's their role, and I think they've been playing it to the best of my ability, effectively.
To the best of their ability.
Of their ability.
They're not appointed, by the state. The people of Lagos State don't necessarily.
I think it's just for the APC.
No, it's for the APC.
For the APC.
It's for the APC
alone. Okay.
Yeah, it's party setting, not for the state. It's party setting that these are leaders. And for me...
All that statement.
Okay, you get the right word for that, They are just there to tell you. I can tell you, in my profession, I remember when I was chairman of a district in Iken. I have such people, we call them the body of past chairmen. They've passed through the place, they have the experience, and they are there in advisory capacity to tell you, okay, they come in, you share your plans with them, and they monitor intermittently. I know then every quarter there's a meeting with that particular body to say, okay, these are things that you've actually promised. These are things we've said we'll do. How far have we gone? What are your plans? And you share it with them. If there are inputs they feel they need to give to you, they will offer. So I feel it's something that is of necessary, if you ask me, for us to go. Otherwise, it's just people derailing.
Yeah, I mean, so as necessary as it might paint out, I think, there's also the parts where it might also be dangerous, to have, a group to be so influential in the politics of a state or a country, and it's not just particular to Lagos, anywhere that this is happening. Do you also see the negative aspects of it, the influence that, such a group can have on the state, and maybe then be able to determine the trajectory of the state beyond, what is really necessary for the citizens of that state or residents of that state?
Yeah, I understand the aspect you say, and that's why I feel most of the time they are very careful in selecting the people that will make up that committee like GAC, the Government Advisory Committee, to be people who you can consider as selfless, who have the passion of the people. You see, a lot of things can accrue to you based on the fact that you are in a particular committee or in a particular position as a leader. It doesn't mean that everyone in that committee is 60 years and above or older than Mr. Governor. But you might have some young people daring to contribute their own. The negative aspect, you see, in everything in life, there is always positive and negative. Once the positivity outweighs the negativity, everybody assumes that that's the best way to go. It's not that they don't have their own negative side to things that happen, but once they consider that their contribution in the positive aspect is much more. I can tell you from what I read, the exit of the former speaker, it was GAC that actually engaged the national leader to say these are things we have observed about the speaker as regard his relationship with the governor of the state. I read that at the last presentation, it took over 4 hours, for the speaker to come in, and it has been a continuous thing for him to come late to programs where the governor will be. I'm sure that even at our own capacity, you cannot invite them and they will be waiting for you. So irrespective of whether you have stayed so long at a particular place and you are considering that this particular person is younger, he doesn't have the experience, you must respect the office. You are not respecting individual, but respecting the office of the person that we're talking about. And I think that's part of the challenges that he has faced with. Even when you see some of the, I saw some of his colleagues, speaking and saying that there is this atmosphere where you just shut people down. That's what you get. Somebody being in the house for over 16 years. What do you expect? When you even want to say, what do you know, boy? You're young in this thing, you're a baby. Let the elder speak. And even when you have constructive and objective view, because of his experience, he shut you down. And a lot of them complain that it has not actually be of great benefit, even to the state. It's not assisting them in their consistency, in their deliverables. And that's why they all keep, for 29 or 30 of them to have come together to say, you must leave, it's more than to thought.
Okay, I want us to move on from this story so we can maybe touch on other stories. But as quickly as you can, the opposition has demanded that the speaker be probed. If you remember, Ikufo-Iji Adeyemi had been probed as well, but he said that he had been wrongfully, I can't remember the exact word. what
accused,
yes, and that EFCC had, been on his tail for 12 years, and that, all of that was wrongfully done. Do you see him being probed, or is the best? I mean, I took one tweet yesterday that said that if impeachment is all Obasa gets, that he should be grateful. But do you think that that all the allegations against him, that the opposition would now ensure, and the current party would ensure that he's thoroughly probed?
Yeah, well, it depends. I've always said this, and I know the way our politics rove in the country. It depends on the side where he belongs to, as we speak. He's been impeached. If they decide to forgive him his sin, he may not visit the EFCC and just say, let him learn his lessons there. But if he has stepped on big toes that wants to deal with him, the way politics go, I can tell you that his immunity has been stripped off him. Now they will go after him and get certain revelation. Now, see, the way we play politics here is that once you fall wrong of the people that matters in determining certain things, a lot of expose will come out about you on certain things that they consider. Because I will always tell you this, when I saw this woman, when they accused him of having wrong, NYSC certificate, Kemi Adeosun, I asked, who actually did that? Kemi, that I know, a woman of substance and integrity that have done so much out there, will not want to go there. But do you know the way this thing always go? It is the same politician that will tell you that this can be done. We can do it. We'll keep the secret. When you are playing to their dictate, that thing will remain secret. As soon as you fall apart on the tail, they will start unveiling those things, not from them, but unveiling it to the people that are concerned. So if Obasa is in that particular line, you definitely see certain things that are hidden being unraveled. And if it has to go to CEFCC, they will definitely welcome him there.
Okay. Let's move on from that. On his ex-queen orders regain freedom after 21-day demand. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I think they will have a sign of relief. They've granted them bail, I think to the tune of 10 million and some property. At least with that, and I'm sure they will be coming to the court to make a certain revelation on things that are. You see, when they say the issue of court, it's just an atmosphere for you to go and explain your own part of the story, because we're talking about lives here. Remanding them, you're fine. I know the law says that you can't remand more than whether 48 hours before you are actually put to the court, but they have stayed there 21 days. Now that they are out, they can definitely take care of, because that's even trauma on its own. Even though people will say that even the family of the people that lost their loved ones are also being traumatized. But I think they can have the freedom now and do one or two things to actually explain what happened at that particular area.
Yeah. All right, it is Armed Forces Remembrance Day today. On the Daily Trust, it says that Boko Haram burns church and houses in Borno. Minister is also in the news saying we can't fight banditry with 20 armored personnel carriers. So your quick thoughts on, on those two stories as we, of course, continue the fight against insurgency.
Yeah, well, I want to say condolences to all the heroes that has passed in the military. They sacrificed their life to make things happen. We will continue to remember them for the good. And it's on this note, we always remind the government that when people serve, make sure that their loved ones that they are left behind are given the necessary attention. You don't just push people to war and feel that that is the maximum that they can get. Their family lives in impoverishment without being attended to. On the second aspect, I asked myself the question, when we are saying that we cannot use 20 armored vehicles to fight insurgents, how far have we gone with the resources that we have to see that this is the extent this can go? I'm only speaking from the perspective of a management person. You don't expect so much is being allocated to defense, and I'm sure it's not only armor thing that will take preeminence. We have to Kano, we have all those things that the last administration invested huge amount in. How much have we actually utilized this to say that we are actually winning the war or we are overwhelmed? These are areas that we need to look to. You see, we must have analysis before we come to just make some of those, because this idea, some people have come to say it's not a war that we have to take up with ammunitions. It's about addressing the psyche of some of the people that have actually been indoctrinated into this act, and see how you can pull them out to know that what they are doing is wrong, as against fighting. We've been hearing of killing and killing every day. How many of those other parties have we been able to say that we've been able to kill, or those that are actually brought to that were found culpable? And we all say, what we say is forgiveness. You reintegrate them back into the system, and you expect those things to work.
I'd like you to speak to that, because a few days ago, I was the guest we had when we were talking about reintegrated good. I think it was terrorists in Kaduna, so I'm not quite sure which of Kaduna, had said that they had asked for forgiveness and saying that they want their kids to benefit from education, and they wanted to be reintegrated into the society. What's your take on terrorists being reintegrated back into the society?
For me, I've always take this, and a lot of people will say that is really too hard. Forgiveness is of the Lord, not human. Forgiveness is of the Lord. You have killed by the sword, you go by the sword. I have been an advocate to say capital punishment should be done. Most of the time people will say, no, it's really not at the operation or the forefront. It's just an informant. Are you aware that giving information is powerful than carrying that particular sophisticated weapon? Because when you don't know the target, then definitely you won't achieve your aim. But when somebody is able to tell you that this is the direction at which to go, he has empowered you to achieve your aim. So when I see some of these things coming to say, let's reintegrate them back, let's forgive them. In fact, there was a period when I heard that they were actually being empowered, given generating sets, barbing vehicles and the like. And I say, the people that they have actually displaced are still in IDP. And you're actually celebrating this set of people saying you are bringing them back. Why won't we see increase in the number? I've said that if you do capital punishment, okay, how many of you have actually owned up that you've been part of this deal in the last 6 months? It's confirmed you are. Let's just finish them, remove them, and reduce the number. So when you are going into the business, you have an idea to say, if I'm caught, death is what I'll face. Even when I don't have that death on the operation ground. When I even say I've owned up and I've finished everything, they are still going to kill me. Then you have a second thought. But this idea of reintegrating them back into the system because we are in the... Do you know the number of military people that die on a daily basis, sacrificing their life, and you feel that these people will come? They will come back. I always tell people, some people will tell you that in the morning they gave their life to Christ. In the evening they will go back, because what they are enjoying in that particular business cannot be compared. If you give them safe landing now and you give them some empowerment, if they are not enjoying the largesse they have at the other side, be rest assured, the skill is there, the knowledge is there, they have everything high up there. They will go back and reinforce in a more powerful way. And that's why I've never been an advocate to say, let's integrate these people. I always tell you, forgiveness is of the Lord, not human, and we can move on that.
It's also important to mention, that as much as, the advocates, I mean, you're an advocate for capital punishment for terrorism, but they still need to go through the justice system, So it's pretty difficult, because they still need to be found guilty.
Most of the time when they are even found guilty, they plead. It's just like somebody's stolen our money. A lot of them, they've stolen our money and they will come with plea bargaining. And then why are you doing plea bargaining? Why are we not punishing this act? Somebody has picked up 10 billion. And you say we'll plea bargain and give you 2 billion. So what happened to the remaining 8 billion?
I'm just pointing out, that.
When they go to the court, let them go to that process. Once you are found culpable, then let's just reduce the number, and we'll go that particular route.
I also do not know that the Nigerian government, readily has the resources, to engineer that process, that long, and of course, you also know the way that our criminal justice system is. There's also those who would say, well, they may have assisted with, terrorism, but they didn't necessarily kill anybody. So, we should have a different...
and that's why I always come from that perspective to say those informants are more powerful than those that are carrying the ammunition, because they give you the precise information on how to eat. Yeah, so when you don't have that information, it's difficult for you. It's just like you facing this direction as if you want to eat the gun. And the person,
Those
is behind
planning
you.
strategy,
I'm
the ones carrying the gun, everybody is involved.
Yeah, I just feel like it's a much wider conversation that needs to be properly broken
Looked at
down.
from different angles.
Yeah, from different angles. Because yes, capital punishment. If you have killed and raided villages and communities, and your victims have lost family members and are currently living in IDP camps. Yeah, I mean everybody would agree with that, but there's little details here and there. Nigerian government also needs to own up, to where it has also failed. To provide for these people who have then had no other reason than to go join, terror groups.
I will not support you on that, Osag.
I'm not saying that is an excuse. I'm just laying out the different angles that must also be,
some of those things
be spoken about.
That your lack of funds does not should not encourage.
Oh yeah, no, it's no excuse. It's no excuse. Doesn't exonerate anybody. So I'm just pointing out the different angles. That's
why I said it's my own view, and somebody will say, Sheson, we will not even make you a president because this is your capital punishment. Because I feel when you reduce the number, it sanitizes the system. You can imagine if a lot of the people that have been misappropriating our funds are actually being dealt with. So when you take the position of authority to lead and you know that you are managing people's funds, you'll be very careful. I've asked up till today, Oli Osag, where is our former Minister for Humanitarian Affairs? Where are we on the case? Where are we?
I don't know if
so another person will come in and such thing will happen and nothing will happen. So why do we just raise up sensational news for people to read? But we don't. We have good starting, but the finishing is really very, very poor.
Yeah. All right. On the Punch newspaper this morning, Southwest governors team up against ISWAP elements and bandits. Governors working on intelligence reports at Southwest Monarchs demand proactive step. We did speak a little bit about this last week, and I was asking that if the Nigerian government, if this is true, if these threats are true and they're real, the Nigerian government has battled ISWAP and Boko Haram and bandits and kidnappers, in northern Nigeria and the whole of Borno and Zamfara and all those places for 15 years. What is Amotekun going to possibly achieve if they are the only option that the Southwest governors have to protect the Southwest? The military is spread thin in different parts of Nigeria. Can they now extend to the Southwest to also protect those regions? It's scary. Very, very scary.
Very, very scary.
I started the show this morning by asking, we've heard about terrorism and insurgency for the last 15 years, since 2009. We have all agreed that Nigeria has very porous borders, where arms and ammunition, very likely flow in. Has any Nigerian government since 2009 said to themselves that we have a target, and the target is that we must seal up Nigeria's porous borders? Has anyone, just one of them, said that this is going to be something that we need to have a proper analysis of where we are with our borders? How many years will it take for us to completely ensure that Nigeria's borders are closed and are sealed, and you cannot just move those arms in, because those arms are produced, in Borno State. They're brought in.
Yeah.
So has there been any proper conversation on anything? Like, we haven't. We, have continued, and I always would give kudos to, Nigerian army.
Yeah.
They have done exceptionally well. They have been extremely brave, in fighting this fight. But there are other aspects of this fight that we seem to just be ignoring, and one of them is the border. Yeah. What critical steps have we taken in 15 years?
Yeah, I'll tell you that the government, I would say, is responsible for some of the pressures from what you have said. A lot of issues are identified. But when it comes, and you have a lot of committees set up to look into those issues, paperwork, white paper are submitted and some of those things. When it comes to implementation, it becomes a different ball game on this thing that we're talking about. And I think that's why we've had repeatedly this issue of insecurity going up and down. Amotekun may not do a lot, but maybe on a very lighter note. This is Southwest. And our fathers will tell us there's this thing we call disappearing power to resurface somewhere. We call it Igbe. So when you make use of some of those things, you can see beyond those areas where you are. Whether it works or not, I don't know, but I know we grew up with some of those mentalities. But the truth is, we can put, what we have been advocating for is that, can we decentralize this issue of policing? where the locals can be empowered in such a way to protect their area. The first thing we must address is, can we know ourselves in our environment? And it must start from the grassroots. A lot of these people that are eating hard have a place where they reside. They stay here and go out to go and eat there. But people can ask questions in your locality. I'm sure the estate majority of us are living. There is no how we don't know one another, and certain things that we are actually getting involved with. And that's why we said, can we just fill down this level of security and just decentralize it from the central? Empower the local vigilante, the local government, the state governor, in such a way that everybody can protect their area. When you have an external person coming on board, the first thing is always information. Yeah. When they want to attack, they need to have information that this person is having this particular thing. Even when they want to rob, even when they want to do it, there must be information. If you're able to tame that information sharing, and they know that there is an apparatus around to curb whatever they want to do. Why is it that it's a bit difficult to access some estates? Because they know that this area is well, and most of the time, those estate people, do they make use of ammunitions? It's not all of them. Yeah. It's not all of them, but they try as much as possible to ask questions, make certain things as rules to govern their area, and we feel that, at least for certain level, we are actually protected against external aggressions that will come into our estates. And that's why we say, reduce and filter those things down the drain to the local, empower the urbans and let them know, the traditional leaders. Right. If your area is not well secured, it becomes a problem to you, and you can always look for a way that you will not grow economically.
Security experts, have, a lot of views on these things, but, we're out of time. Thank you very much, Mr. Okwandi, for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
Yeah. All right, stay with us this morning. We have a bit more to share with you before we end the program this morning, and Which Way Nigeria comes up right next. For the last 15 years, our great country has waged a bitter war against terrorism, costing thousands of lives, men, women, children, civilians, and soldiers. And so today's monologue won't be about politics or governance. Today, on Armed Forces Remembrance Day, we honor the parents who have lost their children to this senseless war, the mothers who cradle absence, the fathers who stand where their sons once did. Your pain flows endlessly, and your laughter, which was stolen, is remembered, your dreams shattered. We also remember the millions displaced, uprooted from the homes and the lives that they once knew, now seeking refuge in refugee camps and IDP camps. Though those camps may shelter your bodies, they cannot heal your hearts. And to the grieving and to the forgotten, we see you, we mourn with you, and we feel your pain. But most importantly, to the fallen, the survivors in uniform, our brave men from all tribes and religions, those who fought like brothers side by side from the deepest parts of Sambisa to Sabongari, to the soldiers who kissed their families goodbye, never to return. Out there where there are no tribes, no religions, no politics, there is only the brotherhood of survival, unity of purpose that binds you all. Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Fulani, Kanuri, Tiv, none of that matters. In the trenches, you are simply just soldiers, fighting for a land that sometimes forgets you. The soldier who hasn't seen his family in many months. The soldier who died in battle, living behind a family mourning. You fought for a peace that is unseen, for a nation that sometimes is still blind to your sacrifices. You watched your comrades fall beside you in battle, their last breath mingling with the dust of our land. Your courage burns eternal. Those of you who survive carry scars that we cannot imagine. You fought, you bled, you endured. Your honor is unshakable. Your sacrifice is immeasurable. And on Armed Forces Remembrance Day, we see you and we honor you. To the perpetrators of this war, to those who have profited from our suffering, to those who through incompetence or gross negligence have contributed to this madness for 15 years, those who have funded, supported directly or indirectly the continued killing of Nigerians by terror groups, bandits, unknown gunmen, kidnappers, those who have turned our nation's pain into their gain. Your greed has soaked the Nigerian soil in blood. You tore apart homes to build your empires. You have torn the souls of thousands to shreds for whatever it is that you stand to gain. And we're asking this morning, when is it ever going to be enough? On this Armed Forces Remembrance Day, we plead with the current administration to join hands and join us in saying, enough is enough. Nigeria has bled too much. Happy Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and God bless Nigeria.
A very warm, heartfelt, and very necessary remembrance for members of our armed forces and their families. Oftentimes we talk about the sacrifices that they make. Here on this show, we highlight the sacrifices that they have to make, going out every day and not knowing what the day will end like, if they'll come back alive or not. And I oftentimes would like to highlight not just the sacrifices that the members of our armed forces make themselves, but also their family members, those who invariably are serving the country by ensuring that their family members are in the best state of mind. You know, their spouses go to war and they don't know if they would ever come back. So today we want to say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for protecting our territorial integrity from external and internal aggression. Thank you for just being there for us in the way that we cannot be there for ourselves. And we do hope that the day comes when the war against insecurity is, we can safely say, is won. When we talk about Armed Forces Remembrance Day, I think when I started to grasp the importance of what this day is, you know, I would applaud movie makers. I think stepping into the shoes of these people, there are two movies in particular. There's one, I think it's 76, and there's another movie, I can't remember the name of the movie, but it detailed the story of what the reality is like for these people. You know, and it was just a sad situation, watching them and being in their shoes. Yeah. Watching women who were pregnant and their husbands went to war, who never, like, their children would never have the opportunity of knowing who their parents are, because who their father is, because their father was serving the country. Yeah,
I tried to incorporate all the, you know, the different groups of people who have suffered bitterly in this 15-year war. You know, of course, most importantly, again, the soldiers, because today is their day, but also the families, like you've mentioned, the IDPs, those who currently do not have homes and, you know, have lived in some camp or the other for the last, you know, 10, maybe more years. The parents who have lost their sons and daughters, the, you know, wives who have lost their husbands.
And husbands who have lost their wives.
And husbands who've lost their wives as well. The, you know, Chibok and Dapchi and, you know, all those girls who were kidnapped and those who never returned. And that we, you know, almost, you know, well, we still hope that they come back someday. But, you know, at this point, you know, a lot of people have, you know, basically just, you know, bade them farewell because you have no idea what they have dealt with. You know, and also, this one I did speak about a couple of months ago, and that is the trauma that Northern Nigeria has had to deal with, you know, and parts of Northern Nigeria that, you know, those communities that have repeatedly been terrorized, those lives that have really just been torn to shreds, right, because of this, you know, this insurgency that, you know, would almost never heal from that trauma. So yeah, it's a whole lot, you know, to incorporate and to unpack with, you know, this conversation on armed forces.
And just to add to what you've said, even family members having to watch the news every time and to see the budgetary allocations, and even the soldiers themselves seeing the budgetary allocations to defense and sometimes feeling that they may be ill-equipped to go to battle, and just wondering, but there's a budget for it. Why are we ill-equipped? Why do we have to sacrifice ourselves? You know, just seeing Dasuki Gate still today, what's the update with Dasuki Gate? You know, seeing the proliferation of arms in our country, I wonder how they feel when they watch the news and see these updates and how heartbreaking it must be for them to feel like, you know how sometimes someone dies or you lose a loved one, but if you feel like they died for a good cause, it gives you some form of closure, like the death was not in vain. But a number of them have to leave feeling like their loved ones died in vain.
Yeah, it's painful. It's very, very painful. I did feel very hurt when, you know, we saw that attack at the forward operating base in Borno State a few weeks, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. I did feel very, very hurt, you know, seeing Nigerian soldiers, you know, and the videos of, you know, well, the videos that, you know, were allegedly Nigerian soldiers, you know, that were killed. It hurt me, you know, because I've when I see those things, I really ask myself, what exactly did this person need to die for? I mean, why did this person, this was someone's brother to someone's father, why did that person need to die? For what? Because of some insurgent group that nobody still understands what they exist for, or why they're here, who's funding them, where they get their arms from, why have they existed for the last 15 years? When you hear about the families and you see, those bodies littered in those communities, and you ask why? Why did this have to happen? Nigerians living in IDP camps, it feels like they're on exile inside their own country. It's completely insane.
It's wild. Anyway, we will be wrapping things up here. Once again, we show our utmost respect to members of Nigeria's armed forces and to say thank you for constantly showing up and defending us, and to the loved ones as well. Today we'll be sharing with you what's happening later today on subsequent shows on the show, on Breakfast Central or News Central. We do have Jasiri that's coming up at 10. You don't want to miss that, and the news at 9. So still stay tuned and make sure to continue conversations on social media at News Central TV. We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbawa. See you tomorrow.
Good day.